Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. I lose track of time. It's good afternoon. So thank you for being here. I hope you're all having a great re:Invent. So today's topic is we're going to discuss about how US Army uses Wickr for telemedicine workflows. My name is Arvind Muthukrishnan. I head up product for Wickr. And I have Matt and Gaura here with me. If you could introduce yourself.
Absolutely. I'm Matt Quinn. I'm the science director of the Army's Telemedicine and Advanced Technology Research Center at Fort Detrick in Maryland. And I'm really happy to be here and to be being able to tell this great story with my partners here.
Great. I'm Laura Baker. I'm a senior manager at Deloitte. I'm in our government and public sector practice. I focus on our federal provider clients and excited to share the great work we've been doing with Wicker and TATRC.
Thank you both. I just want to set context on what we will be discussing today. So we are going to briefly discuss and introduce Wicker, what Wicker does, what value prop it provides, and we're going to shift to TATRC's mission and vision, and their point of view on forward-looking telemedicine health scenarios. And then Laura will kind of cover how Deloitte partnered with us to build a really beautiful telemedicine workflow for disconnected scenarios. And then we'll open it up for questions. So that's the agenda. Let's get started. So when we launched a native service last year, re:Invent 2022, we went out and asked customers, what are the key needs that we need to solve for when it comes to a communication service like Wicker? And very often, we heard customers say, there are many communication products out there in the market. We lack a secure communication tool that we can use for very sensitive and confidential conversations, because the world is an increasing place of security and vulnerability threats. So we want to have a tool that we can use to confidence securely and confidently with handling some very mission-critical informations. They also said security is great, but we also need flexible controls to manage policies, to manage boundary of people, boundary of content, and also to ensure that we actually retain data for regulatory purposes. And that's actually a key theme that emerged in every single conversation, which is there are a lot of communication products out there that are end-to-end encrypted, but we don't have a way to retain data. We only have a way to ensure the communications are secure. That puts us in a hot water. And a lot of our international and US customers kind of say that the regulatory bodies are increasingly being aware of usage of these apps, which doesn't meet regulatory controls, and clamping down on them. So customers told us data retention is very important to us, in addition to advanced security. Last but not the least, no matter how great a secure product can be, no matter how many controls we give, or how many flexibility we give in terms of retaining data, end users will not use the product if the product is not simple and intuitive to use. So we have put a lot of focus on the communication being very simple, while we abstract all the security and policies from the end user and give those controls to administrators. So these are the 4 key themes that emerged. And Wicker solves all of these 4 themes pretty well. So what is Wicker? Wicker is a single product with full suite of communication capabilities, be it screen sharing, messaging, file sharing, calls. You can do everything in Wicker, and everything is end-to-end encrypted. Wicker is also multi-device. We have designed this to be very frugal in terms of the resources that the product uses. So it works really well in low bandwidth networks, in edge and disconnected scenarios, across mobile, desktop, any other form factor you want to use. And Wicker has a full suite of enterprise management capabilities, right from SSO integration so that you can leverage all the setups that you have with your identity provider, defining security groups that are Wicker specific so that you can control boundary of people using security group and apply policies to different sets of people. One of our unique capabilities is that Wicker is one of the very few products in the market that has end-to-end encryption, but also provides the ability for organizations to retain data I will go more into this topic in the future slides. We do this in a very unique way, and we are extremely proud of how we have achieved this. Again, one of our key differentiation is Wickr provides flexible deployment models. We understand that customers sometimes would want a cloud-native AWS managed service based out of their region. We also understand that customers would want to sometimes self-host their own infrastructure for air-gapped and disconnected situations. So Wickr is one of the very few products that provides both options. You could stand up Wickr as a cloud-native product. You could also deploy your own version of Wickr in your enterprise to ensure that higher security postures are maintained. And emphasizing again, everything in Wickr is end-to-end encrypted. It's important to kind of spend a few seconds on this because encryption means a lot of things to a lot of people. Traditional encryption usually involves a server. So there is a server component which kind of handles all the transactions. With Wickr, it is client to client. It's client-side encryption. Only the endpoints can access the data. And if you want the endpoints to be deleted, once the endpoints are deleted, the data goes poof. So we have capabilities that are specific in terms of disappearing messages and all that stuff that our most sensitive customers use to secure their data. And while we know that out-of-the-box capabilities like messaging, file sharing is important, we also understand each customer has their own unique use cases and workflows. So we have built an extensible mechanism through what we call Wickr bots, where you can actually bring in data from any system of record and allow Wickr users to manipulate the data, take actions, and take data out. And the key part of this is Wickr bots are also encrypted, and they act as another user in your organization so that the end-to-end encryption promise not only stays with the messaging and calling and other communication capabilities, it's extended to workflow automation as well. So that's in a nutshell about Wickr. Now let's talk about how Wickr is unique. Again, like I said, there's a lot of communication apps out there in the market. It's very important to understand how we position ourselves. So let's talk about advanced security, where everything is end-to-end encrypted. There are consumer offerings that provide this capability, where every conversation is end-to-end encrypted. It's fantastic privacy posture for the user. When it comes to top enterprise messaging apps, not everything is end-to-end encrypted. Usually you see one or two workloads being end-to-end encrypted. Everything else follows standard TLS encryption. And again, consumer apps lack the administrative controls because it's all about the end user. It's all about you as an individual. You own the data. So consumer apps lack enterprise controls of defining what policy should be applied for conversations. Enterprise offerings offer that. And again, in the consumer world, data belongs to the individual. So organizations have no right to claim that data. So it's an individual-owned privacy model. Whereas when it comes to enterprise apps, data retention is a capability all enterprise offerings offer because organizations own the data. And when it comes to flexible deployment models, across consumer and enterprise, cloud-hosted is probably the most preferred model. There are very few products that offer self-hosted capabilities these days. So it's a no across the board when it comes to having flexible deployment models and having the ability to talk to each other between those models. So this is where Wickr shines. We check all the boxes. We are end-to-end encrypted. Everything is end-to-end encrypted, which provides advanced security. We have administrative controls like any other enterprise product does when it comes to policy and user management. We do provide data retention capabilities so customers can flexibly apply a policy for retaining data for regulatory needs. And we also provide flexible deployment models across cloud, self-hosted, and air-gapped networks. Now, let's talk about the two main product offerings that Wickr has. AWS Wickr is a cloud-native offering. This is a managed native service that you can go to the AWS console and start spinning up even today. We are available in 5+ regions natively: US East, Gulf Cloud, Canada, Australia, Sydney, and Frankfurt. And we have designed this service to be digitally sovereign. We understand international customers, especially when it comes to secure communications, have an inherent need to ensure that the data doesn't leave their boundary. Like organizations want to emphasize that whenever we have secure communication workflows, we want the data, the sensitive data, to not leave our boundary. So with Wickr, if you spin up a network in US East or Sydney or any AWS region, everything is self-contained within the region. The messaging stack, the calling stack, all the policies, all the messaging, everything is self-contained. So, and we are also pursuing international authorizations like IRAP in Australia, CCP in Canada, FedRAMP, and DoD IL5 in US. We are HIPAA compliant, we are GDPR compliant, we are already FedRAMP moderate and IL2 compliant. We also have advanced communication capabilities like what we call ephemeral messaging or network obfuscation. I'll just spend a few seconds on ephemeral messaging. We have customers that come and tell us that there is information I need to communicate securely, but I also want to make sure that information is destroyed after that person is read. Mission impossible stuff, like this message will self-destruct in 20 seconds. So we have many policies at a room level, at a security group level, where you can enforce, for certain conversations, burn on read the message after 15 seconds, 1 day, 1 minute, depending on your scenarios. But the key thing is, yes, it gets deleted on the endpoint, it gets burnt on the endpoint, but the retention server will still have that message, so that as organizational administrators, you have the ability to know what was said and provide evidence when a regulatory case is in action. So while the data is secure on the endpoints, if somebody else confiscates the device, nobody can see the data. It's still safely stored in an infrastructure of your choice so that you can provide evidence. So Wickr Enterprise is our self-hosted offering. So some of our customers actually use both products in tandem. They use a cloud-native offering because they don't want to incur the overhead of maintaining a server for certain conversations. They also use self-hosted offering to ensure their very sensitive disconnected scenarios are actually met using a self-hosted product. We have built our self-hosted product in a way that everything is configurable, right up to the level of what kind of a network you want people to interact with. If you want to apply VPNs and private endpoints, you can apply them. If you want to put that on a snowball device and take that over to edge and have compute available for running Wickr, you can do that too. So all tactical missions have a combination of self-hosted offering and cloud-native offering being in action. And the key thing is the red box, which is global federation. No matter which version of Wickr you use, users can federate with each other. You could have a cloud-hosted user based out of Sydney region, a cloud-hosted user based out of US East, and a specific air-gapped user that's running on a snowball. All of them can federate, be in the same conversation, and ensure the conversations are end-to-end encrypted. So that's one of the key capabilities that our customers leverage for external communication, partner communication on tactical missions. We also have obfuscation capabilities, which I will speak about in a bit. But that's like the way we have designed this is from the principle of security first and configurability first. That's what Wickr Enterprise is all about. You can actually turn on VPNs. We have inbuilt VPN capabilities like Wickr Open Access that obfuscates traffic to protect users against monitored networks. And last but not the least, all the capabilities, even though these two products offer flexible deployment models and different postures of configurability, the end user capabilities are the same. Messaging works the same way, calling works the same way, experience is as simple as using any other messaging product out there. Now let's take a look at the experience. So this is the Wickr app on desktop, obviously, and I have a room, and as you can see in the room, I can actually add moderators. You can have moderated conversations, one-on-ones, group chats, and you can see settings where you can configure how long the room history should be saved, how people should get notifications. The saved items are something where you can save items from a conversation and get back to it at a later point in time. So we have all those abilities. And as you can see, once I go to edit the group, you will see expiration timer and burn on read timer. What expiration timer does is it sets a client-side expiration clock. So in this case, you can see the timer being 30 days, and in the chat box, in the compose box, it says expires in 30 days. So what that means is the conversations kind of gets cleaned up on the client side every 30 days, on a rotation basis of 30 days. And you can upload your picture, you can show your status or hide your status depending on how you want to be. It's got a plethora of communication capabilities and room management capabilities so that everybody can manage conversations as they see fit. You've got app mentions, which will notify the users. Emojis is a key part of any conversation. We've got a lot of emojis, which will show up soon. We have got secure file sharing. I'm going to share a file, and then you can actually save the file to the room so that you can go and access it at a later point in time. Important assets that being shared in the conversation, everyone has a mechanism to go get there. And as you can see, there's delete capabilities, just a simple messaging app to use. Again, just to reiterate, our customers often are very surprised by the fact that it's extremely simple to use, but there's a lot happening on the background to keep all the conversations secure. So we kind of overhinge on every capability that we build. Even though we want to take a security first point of view, we spend a lot of time in figuring out how to make it easy for the end user. Now let's talk about data retention. A lot of our customers ask this question. You tell me everything is end-to-end encrypted. How do you also tell me that I can actually retain data? That just goes against the notion of end-to-end encrypted. So we have built a unique way. So yes, conversations are end-to-end encrypted. They can only be accessed on validated endpoints. When I send a message to Matt, for example, once the message reaches Matt, we don't have a copy of the message. So we kind of clean up the message because it's reached the end user that it has to reach. But organizations have a need. If there is a FOIA request in the US federal space, customers say that we have to abide by the law. We have to provide evidence. So it's important for us. SEC 17A4 in the financial services industry is also a regulation that allows customers to provide evidence. Legal hold and e-discovery are applicable regulations for every organization. So these are the kind of policies that our customers want to adhere to, and we enable them in a unique way. So I'll just jump right into it. With Wickr, we have built a unique way. So how do we do this? So when Anna sends a message to John, the message is encrypted on Anna's device, and it gets decrypted on John's device. This is when you set up Wickr by default, this is the experience. Now, when organizations turn on what we call data retention, we provide a retention bot. Again, this is encrypted. We provide the retention bot to the customer. Customer sets up a data store of their choice that's mapped to the bot in a customer-controlled environment. So customer can choose to deploy this in an EC2 instance out of your local region. You can set up your own data center and deploy this bot. It's a Docker container at the end of the day in your own data center and configure a data store. What happens now is when Anna sends a message to John, every single conversation in that network for which the data retention policy is enabled, this bot receives the conversation too. And because this is an encrypted bot, only this bot has the keys to decrypt the conversation. And once it's decrypted, it routes the data to a data store. And customers often use an encrypted S3 bucket as the data store to ensure that data at rest is also encrypted. And we have customers use their own data center with an object store of their choice to make sure that only certain people can physically access that environment as well. So that's all about Wickr. We'll talk more, but now up to the good stuff. So I'll hand this over to Matt.
Thank you, Arvind. How's everybody doing this afternoon? We have the unenviable after lunch talk, so try to keep it lively and talk about stuff other than just the tech. Right, so I'm Matt Quinn. As I said, I'm the science director for TATRC. and we're part of Medical Research and Development Command at Fort Detrick. Our mission really is around fusing data, humans, and machines to automate casualty care, and that's not an easy thing. Any hands here of anybody who, present, past, future, is a combat medic or corpsman or EMS or any kind of medical background? Thank you. You are our customer, and our purpose as TATRC is to help you do your job under very stressful conditions better. I should say, just as a default here, that my comments represent Matt Quinn. I don't speak for the Department of Defense, the Army, the Defense Health Agency, or the federal government. So our work in this area goes back a long time, but specifically it goes back to March of 2020. We really started focusing on how do we do resource-constrained telehealth. And if you remember, in March of 2020, we were on the precipice of a pandemic. And our general called us and said, what could TATRC do to address this? Because we might have some funding to work on the pandemic. And that day we saw this map. This map, in a nutshell, shows that about half of all the counties in the United States lack an intensive care unit. And what that means is that they also lack the expertise to manage really sick patients that need to be intubated on ventilators. And also, as surges occur in their usual places where they send patients, there's going to be the need to hold on to those patients, probably more patients than they're used to dealing with, for longer periods of time. And so that really parallels nicely with TATRC's mission and some of our future concepts. And so really, our focus is expanding both the capabilities and the capacity at the point of need, in the hands of the EMS folks, the nurses, whoever happens to be at those small hospitals and clinics who are managing those folks. Not so much with traditional telemedicine, which we probably all have experienced, or many of us have experienced, where a doctor or a healthcare professional talks to a patient, but by helping expand the skill set and reassure and expand the capability and capacity of those frontline clinicians. There's been a big shift with our exit from Afghanistan and Iraq, where we're moving from relatively constrained areas of the battle space to basically the entire world. Much larger areas. In Iraq and Afghanistan, we were able to increase survival of casualties greatly by focusing on what we call the golden hour, meaning from the point of injury to the next level of care in less than an hour. Because we controlled the sky in evacuation capabilities, we will not have that. And so now we think about the golden day in what's called multi-domain operations. And we need to contend with the tyranny of distance and really peer or near-peer adversaries. So long delayed or unavailable evacuation, dispersed versus very focused operations, and everything I say is unclassified. In Ukraine, for example, the Russians are using approximately 60,000 artillery shots a day, just to give you some context. Numbers that we haven't seen since World War II. It's devastating and horrible. And there are, terrible new weapons that are creating both more casualties, more severe casualties, and more dispersed casualties. So this is really our challenge that we have to come at, and it demands thinking in ways that are different from everyday healthcare, and frankly, a lot of the things that we had to contend with during COVID. The key challenges for those frontline caregivers, for those combat medics and corpsmen, focused on the simultaneous problems of prolonged care, caring for really seriously injured people on the front lines for longer times. And as you see here with a picture from the Pacific Theater in World War II, just really massive numbers of casualties. And one approach to that would be to bring the expertise and more resources to the front lines, which is very dangerous. Another is to expand capability and capacity, again, through automation, and that's really where TATRC comes in. I like to show this because this really speaks to the current state. This is a blow-up of every medical research and development command default slide deck has something very similar to this. And what's wrong with it, if you're dealing with those two prior challenges, is that we have 4 people caring for 1 casualty. We need to flip that, at least. And we need to have people with rifles down range in addition. So really the context of why we jumped into this, why we put together what we call the National Emergency Tele-Critical Care Network during COVID, now MEDIC-P, which is our implementation of Wicker, the Medical Emergency Tele-Critical Care Platform, is to address not just the resource conditions of multi-domain operations, but to address more pedestrian challenges in healthcare. There aren't enough of the kinds of specialists that we need in the military health system when and where they're needed. Rural healthcare is a real challenge, and support for global disasters is also there. One of the things that came out of our COVID-funded efforts is our partners in the Department of Health and Human Services have launched a program for global response to disasters that's called NETCCN. And so there's the ability not just to send people or stuff, but to send virtual stuff now, virtual support. The ability to really do things quickly and in an ad hoc way, to stand something up that is very different than your sort of enterprise software, electronic health record, takes months to set up kind of approach. During the pandemic, the president announced and launched something called Test to Treat. This was converting COVID testing centers to places where patients could receive not just testing, but if they tested positive, could be evaluated and prescribed life-saving antiviral drugs for that. We helped turn a whole series of COVID testing centers in places like churches and community colleges and strip malls in Michigan, underserved Michigan, into those test to treat centers. Did it very quickly and with nothing more than just phones and lightweight telemedicine technology. And then, once you have that basic communication and the ability to what we call telementor or support those frontline caregivers, you can build additional capacity and capabilities, what we call virtual hospital, like remote control and closed loop control of ventilators and pumps and remote control. But it all is predicated on basic communication. And so we're going to show you a video at the end that kind of puts all this together, but I want to hand it over to Laura from Deloitte, who was a key person in the team that took these ideas and these concepts and built the workflows, implemented the technologies, and did it in a way that is permitted, authorized to operate on military networks.
Great. So MEDIC-P, that's what I'm going to talk about today. This is a solution that you can see is responding to that new type of warfare, this multi-domain challenge where you really need to have the ability to do virtual health as part of that prolonged field care. So back in 2020, actually, Deloitte started working with TATRC as part of the NETCCN response to build out this low-resource, cloud-enabled virtual health solution for the military. That implementation of Medic Now is something that we've built on top of Wicker. The security, the adaptability, the configurability, those principles Arvind talked about, is what has really allowed the MEDIC-P platform to be very customized to this unique scenario of virtual healthcare delivery in austere spaces. So the three kind of elements I wanted to talk about today in terms of MEDIC-P are workflow. This is really about the automation of virtual health activities using the Wickr bots. Auster networking, this is the deployment on edge servers that's going to enable that virtual healthcare and disconnected, intermittent or low bandwidth environments. And then the third is connectivity. And this is actually the creation of a secure local internet through the deployment of private 5G networking. So virtual health workflows, it can mean a lot. I know we talked about the traditional patient to provider. The mission of MEDIC-P is not that. It is about telementoring. So we are really focused on how do we connect those on-the-ground caregivers to the specialists, the right specialists they need when they need them. Telementoring, it could look like a lot of things. It could be the remote specialist giving the on-the-ground care providers with a second opinion on medical dosing. It could even be walking a medic through a life-saving procedure they've really never done before. But it's all about giving them that on-the-ground care and advice. So actually what you see on the screen here is a representation of kind of this mission in action. This is from a high-fidelity simulation event that's put on annually called Operation Gunpowder. It's an ongoing training exercise that the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences puts on. It's exposing third-year medical students to these field care challenges that they're likely to face in future warfare scenarios. So starting kind of at the left-hand side, it goes from point of injury through kind of prolonged field care, which in the military is called Role 1 care, into Role 2, which is more of a fixed facility care that can span into surgical and other capacities. Really at the start, at point of injury, what's happening here is the medics and the care teams, they're responding to the patient. They're going to do that initial trauma care. They're going to bring the patient to a more secure location, ideally. And at that point, they're going to start prolonged field care. This could be anything from resuscitative care to trauma care. And knowing this kind of concept of a future multi-domain peer adversary environment, it could be anywhere from hours to days. And at this point is where Wickr and MEDIC-P becomes really valuable to those medics on the ground. So a little example of kind of the types of activities they may do for this prolonged field care: virtual health support. They can go into the application, they can identify a specialist who is actively on duty and available for a consultation. They can start a consultation, they'll use the chat feature to share text information about the patient's conditions. They can take pictures of the wounds, they can share files, take pictures of the vitals, and the consulting provider will receive a message on their Wickr app saying, hey, you have a consult coming in. They will be able to start an audio video call and do that real-time engagement to help the care teams through that patient care scenario. It's interesting too that the way that it's used is not only about this clinical activity. We found that because of kind of the mesh network concept that we talked about, the consulting provider, the specialist, they may be at home, stateside, they may be in their pajamas, you just don't know. And so what the care teams can do is they can use that audio video, they'll turn it around, they'll show them the environment, they'll show them a picture of the supplies that they have, and that's a really fast orientation for that specialist to understand and kind of orient, here is the type of care that's gonna be possible in that environment, and that's another way we're kind of optimizing. As you shift into, once evacuation is possible, kind of that Role 2 care, you're able to, as the care teams, provide information to the receiving site about what's happened with the patient condition, so that they can really start accurately planning, especially if there's advanced trauma or surgical needs coming. So we talked about this environment that is high stress, high risk. And the basic features and the foundational features of Wickr offer all of those communication platform. But Wickr bots are an additional activity that are going to give that workflow automation. The way I kind of think about it in my mind, it's another user who is there with that medic on the ground, giving them a helping hand. So you can configure the bots to help, using that chat automation, walk the provider through the steps that they need to do. The bot will help find the on-duty provider for them. It'll walk them through the key elements of that care documentation of the patient that they need in order to have a successful consultation. So those Wickr bots are really a powerful tool we've used to drive that workflow automation, and more importantly, reduce the mental load on the clinicians who are on the ground with the patients so they can focus on the medical care versus focusing on using the app. Just taking a step back, Wickr bots we talked about a little bit, but really these are SDKs. They're going to allow developers to be able to build custom flow automations. They get embedded into chat rooms. The end users will invoke them with a short command or a keyword. Because they are extensible, they're available for a very wide range of workflows and different types of data, all while maintaining that important encryption. And then, as we'll cover in kind of the second section about austere networking, bots can be self-hosted. And this is actually one of the really critical things that make them usable in these very austere settings where you have closed tactical networks or other sort of closed secure networks. So on this screen, you can see an example of the MEDIC-P mobile app. It looks, similar to the UI in the Wickr app that you have kind of out of the box. On the bottom, you have the navigation where you've got rooms, direct messages, contacts, and settings. At the top of the leftmost screen, you can see the 2 custom bots that we've provided and built out as part of MEDIC-P. The provider bot, which is really focused on facilitating that individual clinicians or that care team's workflows, as well as the admin bot, which is focused on more of that aggregate level care planning, things like shift scheduling and site statuses. In the middle, you can see the menu of the provider bot. It goes through a range of activities from initiating consults to lightweight patient documentation. It's important to note we definitely don't want to be an EMR, right? We want to be able to just share the right amount of information as part of this clinical exchange and then find ways to bring that back into the EHR's system of record. And over on the right-hand screen, and we're going to have a demo video in a minute, you can see one of these bots in action. So actually what's happened is the end user has requested consultations, either in the emergent consultation or specialist consultation, and our friendly helping hand bot has actually opened specific consultation rooms where the specialist has been put into the room as well as the medic on the ground, and that's where they'll go to have their secure clinical collaboration. The desktop interface is, has all the same features, but it's really optimized for the larger layout of the screen. The one thing you will see is we have our 2 kind of bots pinned on the left-hand navigation, so it's a bit one way that you can access them is simply by clicking it. At the top part of the screen, you can also see, can you see this one? Yes, you can. You can see the hashtag list, and that's that short code that can be used if you ever need to get directly to the bot in a fast way. So to bring this kind of to life, I've got a video that walks through some of our bot features. I'm going to kind of talk you through what you're seeing on the screen, but I hope what you really see is that we've intentionally designed this to be very intuitive for the end users, those medics on the grounds who need to focus on care, not technology. And so you can watch this and kind of get a sense of how it works. So this is the mobile UI. You've got the 2 bots on the left, the demo bot and the provider bot. The provider bot and the admin bot. In the middle, you can see the menu of options. We kind of bucket them into 3 things: consults, patient documentation, as well as provider management. You enter any of these workflows by collecting the select icon. It's important to note, depending on what deployment needs you have, you can add, delete these easily for any deployment. So if you don't need an emergent consult, for example, you can take that out. So the emergent consult is the workflow that it's going to walk through next. What you're going to see is it's going to click select, and the system, our bot on the back end, is going to find an on-duty provider who is available for this consult. The bot has now opened a room in the top left, and you can see that you are now in a consultation room with the medic as well as with the on-duty specialist. You can transition from this kind of text-based into audio-video sharing, which is kind of the context we talked about before, where they're looking and they're talking and they're engaging. And this is, that one-click, easy access to the specialist. So the next workflow is more focused on a specific patient-centered consultation. Maybe there's a little bit more time, you want to share a bit more about the patient. So what it's walking through now is it went and found the patient that the medic wants to have a consultation about. You can see the information that's been captured during the patient intake workflow. So information about complaints, conditions, treatments. At the bottom left, you can see, importantly, that the UI is really focused on not having a lot of typing and documentation. It's driving people to table selections and buttons to initiate their workflows. And then what's going to happen next is the medic would say, I need to have a consultation about this patient. And so they'll do the patient consultation button at the bottom most left. And again, that bot is going to open up a room for that consultation in context of the patient that they're talking about. So it's searching for the specialist, the type of specialist that they need, and now they're going to go through and confirm selection. And you'll say yes, and then it'll start the consult. Now, the additional step that happens in this patient-centric consult is that the bot has also pulled in the patient's documentation, their information, so the provider is better informed about the consultation, and they're not going to have to go and look that up themselves. All right. So in addition to workflows, really that second unique element of MEDIC-P is austere networking. We all know we live in a world where we're very reliant on internet connectivity. And so these disconnected, intermittent, low network scenarios, such as air-gapped environments like SCIFs, live battlefields, emergency response scenarios, they're increasingly difficult to manage. So edge deployments, because Wickr is an edge-capable communication solution, allow these virtual health capabilities to exist in very localized or extreme scenarios. As you can see on the slide, this is actually a model that we used for connecting the Wickr enterprise into a military tactical network for being able to use that in those closed network scenarios. On the right-hand side, the Wickr enterprise application is installed on a Snowball Edge device. Because those devices have such a large amount of compute and storage powers, you can actually not only use the core Wickr Foundation functionality, but access all of the bots that are available in MEDIC-P, which is great because you're not only getting the comms piece, but you're getting the workflow assist piece. The edge servers are then connected back into the austere network using that TCP 443 protocol, which is an industry standard secure protocol. And then finally, importantly for data retention, after you're ready to bring that data back into your centralized infrastructure, you can use an Amazon S3 to bring that data back for retention, reporting, and analysis. So kind of the third element of MEDIC-P that make it very unique to this austere healthcare delivery is connectivity. So I think we all know the foundational, if you don't have connectivity, it doesn't matter how how good your app is, right? If you can't use it, it doesn't do any good for anyone. So for military simulation events, including the Operation Gunpowder that I showed on that workflow side, Deloitte and AWS actually established secure, reliable connectivity using private 5G network infrastructure. This was really done through 3 steps. The first was a site survey. So the team went out, did a survey, they tested the different site and identified the ideal placement for those 5G radio cell towers. At the site, then the 5G infrastructure, which shown down here on the bottom left, was installed. This created that temporary private 5G network with a satellite backhaul that made this virtual healthcare possible. And then finally, the mobile devices that were used by the actual the students in the simulation were equipped with private SIMs in order to connect them back to that private G network. So this is an example of where the power of all these different AWS and different services are coming together in order to think about how do we respond to disasters, how do we deliver in austere networks, and really drive into a future model. Finally, what's next? Where are we going with MEDIC-P? So just from the day-to-day use or the general use of MEDIC-P, there is a lot of data that's being generated. So our focus now is how do we harness that digital exhaust and turn it into meaningful insights. So we imagine scenarios where a military commander can understand just from what's happening across multiple conflict zones, what their injury profiles look like, and a public health expert can uncover an infectious disease outbreak that's occurring. This is all without additional burden on those on-the-ground responders for data calls and reporting. You're grabbing the information that they're naturally generating as part of their workflows. So how do we do this? The first is we're really focused on integration of data. So we want to make sure that data across multiple MEDIC-PED deployments are integrated, as well as to and from legacy systems, such as electronic health records. The second is then we layer on that AI ML models in order to augment the human action that's occurring, and again, to start driving down, even lower that burden, the mental load on the medics. And then the third is provide a visual presentation of this at an aggregate layer that's really going to enable real-time decision-making. So you can see on the left, this is an example of a dashboard that was generated from a large kind of multi-site patient intake and care model, and it's really building up to this picture of what's happening around capacity, medical status, and even disease patterns. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Arvind for a little bit more on Wickr's kind of capabilities.
Thank you. I've heard this story many times, the MEDIC-P and the TATRC story. Every time I hear it, I learn something new. It's exciting. I mean, within Wickr, customers like TATRC, Deloitte, and other customers that automate workflows and come tell stories on how they can actually securely automate workflows and ensure that wherever time is of essence, they're able to actually bring value to that scenario. We just get super excited, and thank you both for working with us. So to talk about more differentiated features, Laura spoke a bit about edge connectivity, and Matt spoke about the golden hour. What's important is in scenarios like this, it's important to also understand that there are adversaries that will monitor network traffic and try to block them so that critical use cases and critical data doesn't flow into environments like that. So Wickr Open Access is a feature that's available across all SKUs where it enables users to obfuscate traffic. So we have a bunch of global proxy servers. The traffic bounces between them. It's incredibly difficult for adversaries to monitor Wickr traffic and block them. So we not only provide security at a level which the data is encrypted, we also want to make sure that we protect against threats where they can block the data. And we have flexible options for this capability too. Administrators can enable, disable them. Administrators can also force Wickr Open Access for certain users. Like, for example, if someone's going on a sensitive mission, if there is a bunch of people that's going, you can force Wickr Open Access for the set of people. All these flexible policies is what our customers use to protect their users. While we are secure, I spoke about Global Federation a bit in the beginning, just to touch more on that. One of our key differentiation is how we enable external communication, but also maintain the same security posture, which our customers want. I'll just walk you through an example. A customer that's setting up a network in Sydney, a customer that's setting up a network in Frankfurt, a customer that's deployed their own instance of Wickr Enterprise using our self-hosted version. When they all talk to each other, it's very democratic. Everything is end-to-end encrypted. Everybody gets a copy of the conversation so that they can retain the conversation for auditory purposes. And we are one of the very few tools in the market that enables external communications in a way which is as simple as email. You just hit the email address of the other user you want to talk to, and if federation is enabled, you can reach them and be compliant with your organization policies too. We have differentiated experience to kind of indicate that someone is in an external conversation. The blue globe that you see on the header, it kind of pops up in the chat list as well, so that users can visually differentiate, okay, this is a conversation that I'm having with my own team, this is a conversation I'm having with external users, and kind of build the mental models around what to share, when, and all that stuff. And administrators can control this capability too. Administrators can decide to enable what we call global federation, which is users in their organization can communicate with any other Wickr user. They can also allow list certain customer domains. So as an organization, you can say, I want to talk to only organization B, C, and D, because that's what I partner with. I want to block everything else. All those flexible policies are available. And I want to touch on ATAC plugin too. This is one of the things that we built custom for tactical edge mission scenarios. ATAC is Android Team Awareness Kit. These are kind of experiences where people on edge, they go around with tablets You can't communicate through voice because communicating through voice would compromise your mission. So you've got a tablet. All the pins over there in the map, the ping pins, they're actually devices and other users who you're working with. So you kind of know where everyone is. You kind of communicate through a map-based geospatial system. Wickr is natively integrated into it. Our plugin, once you install it, you can actually bring all of your Wickr conversations into that ATAC map view. And you can actually initiate conversations from there, initiate Wickr calls from there, and ensure that when you are on the field in a mission, all the goodness around encryption and the network obfuscation that we spoke about kind of help you to efficiently execute the missions. With that, I want to hand it over to Matt to talk a bit about the video that we are going to share. Over to you, Matt.
Yeah. So we've talked about the platform, we've talked about the workflows and sort of use cases, and then the broader premise for why we need these sort of tools to help frontline caregivers during multi-domain operations. Next, we're going to show a video that we put together to try to illustrate these in context with our customer, combat medics, dealing with injuries that are beyond their formal training. Medics, has anybody here seen Saving Private Ryan? Or they're usually young people, up to more experienced people, but they're not degreed medical professionals. They're there to stabilize patients and get them to the next level of care. With prolonged care and mass casualties, they really need help. And this really, I hope, paints the picture. So I'm going to start it. All of the injuries in this are simulated, so don't worry. Nobody was harmed in the making of this AWS video.
A dismounted patrol was struck by an IED. After the scene has been secured, the medics identify and treat the casualty using the Tactical Combat Casualty Care Guideline.
I already got the message out.
With tools like NETCCN, the medics have the ability to digitally communicate the condition of the patient to other echelons of care. This data communication synchronizes effective medical treatment and evaluation. We meet up with the medics and the patient at the battalion aid station. Timeline for holding on to casualties in this space may be extended in large-scale combat operations of the future. The patient has an inhalation injury and is supported by medical ventilation. He also has a circumferential burn to his leg that is constricting blood flow. To save the patient's limb, he will need an escharotomy to restore circulation to the leg beyond the burn. This is not a procedure that is in the medic's training. A system like NETCCN can provide a way for medics to extend their care capabilities by having a direct method to securely connect with the right medical experts for telementorship.
Good afternoon, Colonel Schmidt. Could you give me a battlefield update?
Yes, ma'am. This morning there was an IED blast and they have 4 patients. 3 of those patients that are taken care of at the aid station and should be returned to duty. But one of those patients was severely injured with a circumferential burn. They performed an escharotomy, but I think they need to be evacuated.
Absolutely. That burn patient is an urgent surgical patient. Launch medevac and send the patient to the field hospital.
Yes, ma'am.
Patient is stabilized now. Can you tell?
Looks like you saved this guy's leg. No, we did.
This technology can help me or any medic expand our ability to perform clinical procedures.
It allows them to talk to a telementor to possibly do a procedure that they're not comfortable with or they haven't done before.
And with doing so, we can do it independently and confidently.
I mean, that video speaks volumes. When we were shooting this video, it was pretty phenomenal. So thank you, Matt and Gara, for doing all the great work and helping us build a product that helps you as well. So recap on Wickr, everything is end-to-end encrypted. We have flexible deployment models and administrative controls. Our data retention is completely customer controlled. And we have plenty of advanced features, and we are available as a digitally sovereign offering across 5+ regions with many more to come.
And GovCloud.
And GovCloud, exactly. And there's a QR code. If you want to sign up, we have a free trial option for up to 90 days. You can try out Wickr. We are always on the lookout for customer feedback. With that,
it comes with a free helicopter ride. It does not.
That's Matt's promise, not mine. So yeah, with that, we want to thank you all for coming in, and any questions?